And welcome into the Bobby Carpenter Show featuring my man, Anthony Schlegel. And oh man, Schlegs, I think this is our first show, at least in quite a while. Buckeyes were off. There was college football being played, which is always good because we love
Yeah.
that. College football is absolutely tremendous. A lot of things happening. So the playoff is set. Ohio State's bowl destination is set, going down to the 2-1-4. I know you're pretty excited about that. Conference championship games were a little wild and rough. Maybe someone got left out that shouldn't have. Oh, goodness. Ohio State will be taking on Missouri. We're going to have our
Yes.
questions from listeners with our tailgate talk. We got a whole big show, but we'll start first of all, Schlegs, with the playoff field set. Michigan at 1, Washington at 2, Texas at 3, Bama at 4. Did the committee get it right, in your opinion?
Oh man, I mean, today all of college football felt the harsh reality that faced the citizens of Pompeii, Bobby, as they witnessed the sudden explosion of frothy lava spewed from an unrelenting Mount Vesuvius, aka the College Football Committee, as we now lie in our covered cocoons of magma, only to contemplate for eternity, Bob, the decision to leave an undefeated Power 5 champion out of the playoffs. And here's as I say that, here's where I go. I go back, again, as a coach, player, I go back personally, as all you guys know, 2012. 2012, we had a team, probably Urban Meyer's greatest year of coaching, in my honest opinion. You took a team, basically the same personnel, that went 6-7 in 2011. You do everything that the coach asks. And before this, and I'm talking, guys, listen, the extent to which and the things in which we put these players through, and you go 12-0, and you can't potentially play Notre Dame for the national championship because Alabama would have been out because they had lost that year. We would have been playing Notre Dame in the national championship game and would have beaten Notre Dame in the national championship game. I understand exactly how they feel, how Florida State's feel, and knowing their strength coach is a phenomenal guy. In Storms, he was there at Memphis. He's phenomenal. Those guys are resilient. And then I go back and I also start to think about us in 2014, where Cardale Jones. Now it's different. Like we beat Wisconsin 59-0. Like we had to have that happen in order for us to leapfrog some teams to get in as the 4th seed. And I know it's a little bit different, but it's so funny how we talk about all the different games and we forget, like literally 1 week removed, we forget that Alabama beat Auburn, who consequently the week before got beat by New Mexico State.
The Aggies, Schlegs, the Aggies of New Mexico State.
Auburn got beat by New Mexico State, put Alabama on the ropes, and they had to convert a 4th and 31 to not to get there because they were already in, but to win that football game. And then there would be a 2-loss team that potentially, like that's just the chaos that is college football. And I heard what Kurt talk about in these games, and the margin of victory in these games has been 19 points.
Yeah, it's big. It gets bumpy.
But bro, you're undefeated. And I think the statement, I'm going to read it for you, and I highlighted a couple of nuggets from it.
Who's this? Is this from Boo Corrigan? Is this from Mike Norvell?
No, this was from Michael Alford, the vice president AD at Florida State.
Okay, the AD, gotcha.
And he said the fact that this team has continued to close out victories in a dominant fashion, I wouldn't necessarily say dominant. Their defense played dominant. So let's just preface that. Our core quarterback situation, having enhanced our case to get to the college football berth, earned on the field. Instead, the committee decided to elevate themselves and make history today by departing from what makes this sport great by excluding an undefeated Power 5 conference champion for the first time since the advent of the BCS, whatever. And he goes on, wins, and this is the next paragraph. Wins matter, losses matter. Those that compete in the arena know this. I do know this. People are fired because of wins and losses, which goes back to the whole Michigan thing. Like this shit is real, guys. I'm just telling you right now. Wins a lot. People's jobs are on the line. Like winning a national title is life-changing stuff. I'm just letting you guys know I've been there and done that. Those on the committee who also compete in sports should have known this, but they have forgotten it. Today, they changed the way success is assessed in college football from a tangible metric, meaning wins and losses, winning on the field, to an intangible subjective one, evidently predicting the future matters more. And I'm in agreement with them. Do I believe that right now Alabama is playing at a high level from the game of Georgia, which we'll get into later. I think that they're kind of peaking at the right time, but just what happened the week before, right? In Auburn. And so when I look at all of that,
here's the question.
I truly believe Florida State should have been in.
No, do you think Alabama is better than Florida State?
Man, I'm telling you this right now, with the way that Florida State plays defense, I think that they could play with them at any time. So I'm not going to say that when you just said, "Hey, I think that?" Because listen, guys, we'll go back through the rundown of Michigan's game versus Iowa.
I know
it was crazy.
I get it. And so here's the thing: I think there can be multiple things that are true that don't conflict with each other.
I like that. Please, I want to hear your take.
Well, number one, we got rid of the BCS because people said the BCS just looks at numbers and it looks at scores and it doesn't take into account that this 21-17 victory wasn't the same as that 21-17 victory. And we're watching this and we know these guys are hurt or there was weather in the game or whatever it was. So we wanted human beings, Schlegs. That's what we wanted. We wanted to get away from the machines and go to human beings, to have that subjective metric where there are football people who understand the game, who could intelligently evaluate. Now, are these people that are all judging, are they football people? Maybe. They're involved in football and they're involved in athletics. Does that mean they're pure football people? That remains to be seen. So we go to this subjective measure. The committee has been tasked with putting the best 4 teams in. Nowhere, and they said this last week, and I think this was preparing people for Florida State to be left out. And that's why I told them the committee does not want Florida State in there.
No, they don't.
Because they believe they're going to get beaten up because they cannot score. And if you cannot score in college football now, you have a really, really hard time winning. And they're pushing that out there and letting it be known that Florida State, even if they won, while they were deserving to get in, they're not one of the best 4. Now, with that being said as well, I thought Oregon was going to beat Washington. They were a 10-point favorite. I think the world thought Oregon was going to beat Washington, and Washington stepped up and beat them again. So football people can be wrong. And people, I've watched probably 130 college football games this year. They can be wrong.
Yep.
Those things can happen. And so I understand that. But I believe that they got the best 4 teams in, and I feel terrible for Florida State. And it's awful that Jordan Travis got hurt. But they're a different team without him. And Team Rodemaker makes them a little better. Brock Glenn playing. I mean, their offense was atrocious. They were not good. But here's the thing. They didn't take it out of Florida State's hands. I believe if Florida State would have won that game 42-7, they get them in. They get them in.
I agree, and I agree with you.
That was a third quarterback, and that was why Ohio State, you were part of that, Schlegs. That's why they got in.
Bro, we had to.
They went and outplayed, and they proved you cannot leave us out, despite the fact that we've now on our third quarterback, because look how good we are. And I don't know what Wisconsin was ranked, but they were somewhere probably between 7 and 12. A good team that you just addressed. Meanwhile, Louisville, who lost to an average Kentucky team this year, the week before, is giving you all that you can handle. And so, I mean, we're going to get into this. There's a lot more, Schlegs, to dive into. I think they got it right. I think it's uncomfortable. I don't think it's fair. But
we got to talk about it later.
But we'll get into it. We got more of that coming up. We're going to get into where the Buckeyes are going. They're going to the Cotton Bowl, going back to Schlegs' stomping ground. We'll talk about that, break down that Mizzou, that game, the Mizzou battle, talk about some of these potential matchups in the CFP. There's a lot here to get into. We're taking a quick commercial break, and we'll get into why the 12-team playoff should have been better, what Schlegs wants to say, all these rebuttals, and we'll look at all this stuff coming up next here on the Bobby Carpenter Show. All right, welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show here on the Big Play Network. My man Schlegs, we're in the middle of a hotly contested conversation about, Florida State. They're the most deserving. They should have gotten in. Are they one of the best 4? I don't think so. Frankly, I think Oregon's better than them. I think Georgia's better than them. I think Ohio State is better than Florida State, as currently comprised sans Jordan Travis. So that sucks for everybody else. And a team is not made of one man. I get that, but he plays the most important position, Schlegs, and he is the best player on their team. And they've had a couple of weeks to prove that they could go have success. And Tate Rodemaker, who will be back for their bowl game, he could have proven that, hey, against Florida, go wipe Florida with them last week. Here's the thing, and I'll leave it with this. Florida State, with how their offense is playing, basically turned into Penn State. They've got a great defense.
Yeah.
They can't score on you. And eventually, when you keep hammering against the dam will eventually break. So we'll get into more of that, but we've got some conference championship games to break down. The Friday night matchup, which was an epic thriller. Washington tops Oregon 34-31. Michael Penix Jr., who had been struggling Schlegs a little bit. He'd only thrown for 300 yards in 2 of his last 6 games, came out with a great performance. Washington was able to run the ball. Their defense, I thought, played well. And for everybody, me included, who thought Oregon was the best team out west, Washington went and beat them again. And unequivocally, I don't think you can even debate it now. They beat them twice, that they're the best team in the Pac-12.
Easily, right? And again, people don't realize this, man. It's so hard to beat a team twice in that year. You know, Bo Nix was everything to that team. He was actually their leading rusher. Washington won this game on 3rd down. Oregon was 30%. Washington was 67%. And the score, time of possession in this game, I think, was 37-23.
Yeah.
For Washington.
Which is crazy because in the first matchup, Oregon won every metric except for 4th downs, where they were 0 for 3, and Washington, I think, was 2 for 3. But in this, it was flipped. I mean, Washington controlled the game, to your point.
They did. And you know what? And here's the deal. It was a complete game. Really in the first half, right? Tosh Leopold and I coached together for the Jaguars. He's a fantastic defensive coordinator. Washington really won the line of scrimmage in this game that really set everything up, and Oregon had to score fast. And Oregon actually had the lead at one point in this game, I think in the third, 24-20, and then just Washington just came back. And the difference was their wide receivers, which is why I think, and I also think that Washington has that kind of like aura of Ohio State 2014, like that team of destiny and all the injuries that Penix had. And he's just like, they're just rolling. And I really am excited about this matchup with Texas because both of them don't have very good passing defenses, but both of them can throw the ball really well. It's going to be a shootout, I believe. But that being said, the run that Washington has had this year, like just breaking down their wins, and it's absolutely chaos. Okay. So, and you got to give them a lot of credit. Washington has beat Oregon twice when they were both ranked 8 and 5. They beat Boise State, not ranked, but they also won the Mountain West Conference as a non-conference opponent. They beat USC at the time, who was ranked. They beat Utah, who was ranked. They beat Oregon State, who was ranked, and they're undefeated.
Yeah,
that's 5. I mean, that's 5, man. I mean, like, they've done everything to be right where they are. I'm excited to watch that game versus Texas.
Big 12 championship, Texas 49. Oklahoma State 21. The Pokes didn't really feel like they had a chance. Like, they need to match scores. I was kind of disappointed that BYU couldn't finish them off because Oklahoma, Texas in a rematch, I think would have been a great game. Quinn Ewers was playing well. You know, Texas, they're getting the running game going a little bit, but defensively they look good. I mean, this Texas team, I think, is hitting their stride again right at the right time.
Yeah, and you beat Bama early in the year. You've been winning games with exclamation points. They're running the football. They own the time of possession in this. They won 3rd downs. Like, they're doing everything they need to do. And that's why I think this is going to be a great matchup versus Washington, because you have two teams. Now, here's the deal. Texas runs the ball more effectively than Washington does. I think that's going to give them an edge. It's going to open up yours. But Penix Jr. and those wide receivers, man, it's going to be a tall order for that Texas defense. Now, Texas can also affect the quarterback in certain ways. So I'm excited for this matchup.
Should be a good one. And, that was not a compelling game. And for Ohio State, that was the one that was the toughest to kind of overcome. You couldn't really see that happening.
No.
And it obviously played out on the field. And then Big Ten championship, pretty anticlimactic as well. Michigan takes down Iowa 26-0 over in Indy. The over-under point total, Schlegs, for Iowa in the first half was half a point. So the question was, will they score? And you know what? The under came through, thankfully, as Iowa was not able to post a single point. And Iowa went 10-3 and beat a lot of teams. But when they played a team that was any good, and I'll say Penn State is decent. They're the 10th team in the country, for heaven's sake. But they couldn't muster anything, not a single point, for heaven's sake.
Yeah, so in this game, to me, it kind of opened up. Hey, man, if Knowles ends up taking the Duke job, I know somebody that you should probably look at, and it's the D coordinator from Iowa, because those boys play aggressive. And it's funny, too.
Maybe Brian Ferentz too. Bring him in as a package deal.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But I would say this. I remember when that kid from Iowa, number 4, ran the guy down. I think I was the first to tweet it. It was right after the play because I saw it.
Yeah, it was great.
Because I watch football. I watch football for those reasons. But anyway,
thought you watched it for the dudes in the pants.
Oh man, oh my gosh. Well, I mean, who doesn't, Bob? Obviously you do.
But anyways, watching dudes, man.
Think about this though. Like this is Michigan's offense in this game. They won 26-0. Michigan field goal, 13 plays, 52 yards. Punt return, which is the one I just saw, 2 plays, touchdown. Half, 10-0. Fumble, 6-yard touchdown run. Okay. Something on 4th down, 9 plays, 28 yards, field goal. Fumble, 4 plays, -3 yards, field goal. 4th down stop, 6 plays, 23 yards, field goal. Whoo. Okay. I say all that because now you start to look at them versus Bama and their wide receivers, just like against Ohio State, which I think we match up very well versus the SEC team. I don't see, like, they're going to have to run the football. And we saw what they did to Georgia rushing the football. Yeah. They outran Georgia. They out-toughed Georgia. Like, this is going to be a matchup. I think it's going to be kind of low scoring, but I kind of believe more in the Alabama passing game.
Yeah.
You know, Melton versus a J.J. McCarthy in the Michigan. That's what it's going to come down to. But that's just kind of what I took away from this game.
Yeah, I mean, at Michigan, we'll see. I mean, I felt like they were holding stuff back. They knew they didn't have to put anything out there, you know, and they're going to have some tricks. They'll have some wrinkles. They're going to have to utilize them and find a way to get that done. But, you know, a little bit of an anticlimactic ending to a Big Ten season. And I think it's the appropriate way, Schlegs, to remember the Big Ten West, remembering the way that you should, getting blanked and never winning a Big Ten championship during the entire existence of it. It's the end of an era. They're moving on. And with that, we're going to move on. We're going to take a quick commercial break here, but we've got a couple other games to break down: the SEC championship, the ACC championship, and then dive back in to the Ohio State Buckeyes as well. So don't go anywhere. We got you covered right here on the Bobby Carpenter Show on the Big Play Network. All right, welcome back into the program. Maybe you're watching this on Bally's. Maybe you're watching this on YouTube. Maybe a variety of other social media venues. Thank you for tuning in. Give us a like, give us a follow, and continue to do the same. SEC Championship, Mercedes-Benz Dome, Atlanta, Georgia. Nice midday game. I think a 3:30 kick. All that stuff blended together. It was the middle tier game. Alabama takes down Georgia 27-24. You know, and you wondered after that game, like, man, are they going to try to put Georgia and Alabama in? Would Georgia still go over Alabama? You know, how does that all work? And they give Kirby Smart a ton of credit, Schlegs. He got his team about as far as you can get them without winning a national championship. You know, he didn't get to the CFP, but 3 years in a row, there's a reason why it's never been done, and it's unprecedented in the AP era because it's really stinking hard. And they're 3 points down from potentially beating Alabama. They were right there knocking on the door. It was an unbelievably compelling game. I think both of these teams are good, but I don't know if any of them are historically good like some of those teams that we've had in the past. The last 2 Georgia teams, really good. You know, Bama teams from 5, 6, 8 years ago, really good. I think these teams are good, but I don't see any elite teams in this. In Alabama pulling it out, Nick Saban maybe Schlegs his best coaching job. When you look at this, where they benched Jalen Milroe after the loss to Texas for Tyler Buckner out of Notre Dame. They barely beat, I'd say barely, they beat South Florida, but it's not pretty. And I think it was 17-3, something like that. It wasn't a very compelling game. And then since then, Schlegs, they've had a slow march, a little climb, and give Nick Saban a lot of credit for him being able to get this team there. Survived against Auburn. They had some other close scares, but they have improved each week.
Yeah, I mean, he said some great comments at the end of the game, and the players reiterated it. You know, in times of adversity and playing, you go back to your training, you go back to discipline, you go back to attitude and effort, you go back to team. Like, those are the things that matter. Those are the things that allow you to convert a 4th and 31, right? And still believe and executing plays that they've drawn up before and have ran at practice. And, you know, in this game, much like the Ohio State-Michigan game, it came down to execution and turnovers, right? They had an opportunity to kick a field goal. They had a illegal procedure or offside penalty, right? Moved him back to 50 yards. The guy hits it off the, halfway up the upright. Like, he would have made that. Would he have made it if it was 45? Did that change it in his psyche? I don't know. And then, you try to bring out a trick play right? And you have a fumble. But guess what, man? Georgia's defense stepped up, and they had some injuries in this game. Their wide receivers were banged up. They lost some linebackers in this game. Held them to a field goal. You lose by 3. So you had a turnover that cost you a field goal. You had a missed field goal, right? That's a 6-point swing. You win the game. When talent is equated, man, you got to execute and you can't have turnovers. Both defenses I thought played really well. But you know what, though? Like, they got the nod. Alabama got the nod and Georgia didn't. It's one of those things where you go back and you look at what we could have done better. You know, but again, in a conference championship game or in those big rivalry games, you have to execute, and Georgia just didn't do enough to win this football game, and Alabama did.
Yeah, they're right there. And like you said, it's a very similar story to the Ohio State-Michigan game. I felt like it's just those plays on the margin, the inches, penalty here, a fumble there, a missed block, like a play that could have maybe been a little bigger that, you know, maybe gains 5 instead of 15 or 20. Like, those are the things that you go back and look, and the coaches are going to be sick because these are two of the better teams in college football right now. And I think a lot of people thought Georgia was going to win that game, and kudos to Alabama. Good job for them coming in and getting it done. ACC championship, real barn burner, Schlegs. Florida State 16, Louisville 6. And this is the game that I know that we're talking best versus most deserving, all these different things.
Yeah.
If that score is 35-6, I'm convinced the previous game that we talked about would have been inconsequential because Florida State would have gotten in as an undefeated team that handled their business, but they didn't. And so they won every game. And should style points matter? I don't know. Probably not. Not when you win every game and you're the Power 5. And here's why I give, you know, this is why it hurts for Florida State. I mean, they scheduled up. They played LSU in the non-conference.
Yeah.
You know, they play Florida every year as well. Now, this wasn't a great Florida team, but, you know, you can't control that. It's their rival. You know, so they played 2 SEC opponents, beat them both.
Yep.
Now, they look different without Jordan Travis. And then we saw that with Brock Glenn, their third-team quarterback, manifest itself on Saturday night.
I would say this. If you won that game, very Michigan-esque, very Bama-esque, running the football 24-6, Bob, I think you get in, right? Because it just shows that Jordan Travis was at everything. And again, you beat Florida State or Florida 25, I think it was 25-14, something like that, 25-16, I don't remember, but in the swamp, right? With your second string.
It was a night game in the swamp. Yeah, it's a tough environment, I guess.
Well, you know, they beat Louisville, they beat Duke, and they beat LSU. Like, those are the 3 wins. And people go back, and I'm with you, Bob. I mean, as far as the best 4 teams, I think Alabama is one of those, and I understand why they decided to take them. Because here's why. I mean, like, Bama beat Georgia, Bama beat Tennessee, Bama beat LSU, Bama beat Ole Miss, all ranked. They lost to Texas. That's 4 teams. You know, LSU or Florida State, they beat Louisville, Duke, and LSU. Those are 3 ranked wins. That's it. I mean, and I get it, but still, it's difficult for me to say not to get in because all wins are really hard at this, especially when you go back just 1 week removed and you see Alabama having to convert a 4th and 31 versus an Auburn team. That's not very good.
Exactly.
On the road and against a rival. So I get it when they're looking at our best fur versus most deserving. That's why I would like to lean the hat on most deserving because they did it. They went undefeated. Wins matter. They didn't have any. That's why I say put them in over Bama, but I understand why they didn't. I also think that people get too much clout to the SEC as far as a whole.
Well, the SEC this year, you talked about that. Texas beat Bama. You looked around there, Florida State beat LSU. You know, the ACC beat them in more games. They had a positive win-loss record against the SEC.
6-4.
Yeah, the SEC was not great this year. That's why I don't think there's any great teams in college football. All these teams are very beatable when they're playing at the top. I don't think there's 1 or 2 dominant teams like we've had in the past. The reality is, though, the ACC let down Florida State. Clemson, if that's a 10-2 Clemson team that's ranked 10th, I think that matters a lot more than if it's Louisville and just with the perception of how good Clemson is. So there's a lot of stuff to get in there, but we got to get to the big game that the Buckeyes care about and Buckeye fans in the great state of Ohio, the world famous Ohio State Buckeyes. Well, they'll be going to Dallas to take on Missouri. We'll break all that down next. Who's playing, who's not, how that looks, all right here for you on the Bobby Carpenter Show. All right, Bobby Carpenter Show now talking a little Buckeyes, a lot of Buckeyes. Ohio State drops, I believe, one spot, Schlegs, where they drop from 6 to 7.
6 to 7.
Final rankings. They're going to be taking on Missouri, who is ranked 9th. The Cotton Bowl Classic down in Dallas, Texas. I believe it's going to be December 29th. It'll be an 8 o'clock kick. They will hold the primetime slot on that Friday night. I'm excited for the game. I think it's going to be good. It's a venue that has treated Ohio State fairly well in the past. They've had a lot of success when they went to Dallas. It's where they won the first undisputed national championship over the Oregon Ducks. But Schlegs, you see this. It happens every year. You start talking about opt-outs and who's going to play, and does Ryan make some changes? I mean, what are some of the biggest things that you see happening? Maybe changes roster-wise or starting-wise between now and the start of the game.
Ooh, that's a loaded question because first off, we're seeing a bunch of guys going to the portal that don't necessarily take.
It was like 3 or 4. I don't know if it's a bunch.
Right.
I think that was kind of expected of guys who haven't played a ton.
And guess what? They should, man. Like kudos. Like go live out your dreams and Ohio State has helped develop you. Like go do it. No problem there. As far as like who's going to be there, I don't know. You can't fault anybody really for if they're a first or second round grade. I understand some of that. Now, again, I also played with 5 first round draft picks, Bob, with you and AJ and the litany of dudes that came out that year. And that was not a thing to opt out back then. It is a little bit now, but I would say this, like, it's almost like you have some unfinished business. You're 11-1, you go out, you beat Missouri, a ranked team, you're 12-1. And here we go, right? I mean, playing football is football. I mean, like you could get hurt also in combine training and tear a pec, right? Or pop an Achilles doing some crazy stuff. Like it just can happen. So like, just go out there and play with your boys.
Yeah, David Ajabo for Michigan last year blew his Achilles, during combine training or pro day or something. I mean, yeah, it can happen at any time. It'll be interesting. I think Marvin's probably gone. I'd be surprised if he comes back. I don't think he'll play in the bowl game, but outside of that, maybe Denzel Burke. I'm not sure exactly kind of what his plans are, but I think a lot of the guys, I'm pretty certain that Steele and Tommy and Cade are all planning on playing. We'll look around at, you start talking about guys that could maybe leave. We'll see what happens with Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau. I feel like both of those guys might come back. Maybe didn't have the season, especially JT, that he would have wanted from a production standpoint. And if your goal is to be a first rounder, there's probably still a little meat on that bone.
Yep.
And, so I think, that there's an opportunity here for guys to come back and play and either A, out of their draft stock, or B, they're coming back and this is the start. And I do believe there is some momentum you can gain in the offseason. For sure. Going through bowl, getting a bowl victory, getting young guys ready to play. And one of the other interesting things, Schlegs, is, Ryan, and I'm not saying trying to put words in his mouth, but listen to his press conference talking about, the respect for Drinkowitz, who, by the way, before we go there, Drinkowitz had an unbelievable deal. He's talking to Reese Davis. Hold on. How old do you have to be? He's like, I got somebody beeping in. My wife and I laughed at that. Court and I, like, someone's beeping in for me. Like, you got to be an old person with call waiting to talk about getting beeped in. He's like, it's Connor Stallions. He's got some signs for me for the game. Like, so great. Phenomenal that he dropped that in there. So well done by Drinkowitz, who I have a ton of respect for with what he's done. But Ryan was kind of non-committal with Kyle McCord. Now, maybe the ankle's bothering him. Will he be fully healthy? Do you want to get a look at a younger guy? Watch Devin Brown. Is this a chance maybe show some Lincoln Keenholz and see what he has ultimately to offer? I think that's with these bowl games. How do you balance playing veteran guys versus playing young guys who you want to see something of to see what they can do in this game?
Yeah, so I think part of this time for the older guys is, restoration, which I think that's human performance.
Like restoration hardware, is that?
No, but get them restored, get them back to health, like get them ready to play in this game. Because then
fill their love cup. I like it.
Well, then they're going to go and they're also going to play in a Senior Bowl, and then they're going to go right into combine training. Like there's like a different mechanism that you got to start turning into because they're graduating. They need to do that, but you also have to. In today's college football, I assess this time as personnel. Right? Like you have to see who's on your big board. You have to see where are we lacking? Like who are we going to get in the portal? Who are we going to get, in on signing day? What areas that we need to fill? There's no better opportunity than putting those people in competitive situations to see exactly who we got. Can we trust him, or is there somebody better that's already been developed that we know exactly who they are and we could get them in the portal maybe for a year or two, because we know these two guys aren't going to leave, right? Maybe an older guy will, but that's okay because this guy fills the gap for a year to then raise these up so they can compete after a year. Like, that's really what this time is. It's kind of like in the professionals, it's the OTAs. Like, you're seeing that already, and you go through preseason, and that's why you want all your guys healthy so you can make the right decisions when you have a roster cut, and then you go pick up free agents to fill the gaps. Like, that's what you do. That's really what this time is now in college football.
I think it is. And like you said, to evaluate, get those young guys some experience out there, and I heard a comment about Matt LaFleur, head coach of the Packers, made it about, Aaron Rodgers, what makes him so good. And, and Jordan Love's playing more, he's playing 1,000 plays, or there's some numbers like, because you made 1,000 mistakes, that makes you better. The more you play, the better you get. And you're going to see that with some of the young guys. I think you'll get a big dose of Carnell Tate, obviously, in this game as well. And I think, I don't know, we talked about momentum going into the offseason, I don't know if you can have like a ton of program momentum as far as like you win this game, it's going to go do great things. I think that helps for just the general mood of the team going in. It's always better to get that win going into the offseason. But I think that there can be a ton of momentum gained for some of those young players.
Yes.
Like, you watch some of these guys, burst onto the scene with what they're able to do. What Jackson Smith and Jigba did against Utah, and some of these guys that have big bowl games. You're like, man, like, okay, carry that over. Now there's expectations. The coaches then can start building some of the offense and defense around you heading into spring ball, because they know now, Schlegs, that, hey, you're a known quantity. You're a dude out there, and this is some of the things we can do well. So let's start getting it figured out with what they're able to do. But what we are going to get figured out here, Schlegs, take another quick break, but it's our favorite time. It's Tailgate Talk presented by All Lines Technology, where we answer your questions. There's going to be a lot of them. There's going to be some good ones, and we'll get to all of that right here next on the Bobby Carpenter Show. Favorite time of the show every single week. It is Tailgate Talk presented by All Lines Technology, where we answer your questions. All Lines Technology is your trusted IT solutions partner in Columbus, in Cincinnati, Cleveland, and Schlegs, all places in between. Tell them what they do.
Hey, All Lines Technology attack and dominates in these areas. Microsoft services, cybersecurity services, helpful if you deal with people from Michigan. That's a fact. Also, their state smells like toilet water. Infrastructure services, managed services. Go to all-lines-tech.com. Boom.
All right, so got our first two questions, and they kind of fit together.
Yeah.
Brandon Stidham throwing one out, Irish Buckeye throwing one out as well. Question is, what is the number one position priority to bring in through the portal? I love that we're like passing on the game. And then with that, will Ryan Day look seriously in the portal for a QB like Cam Ward, who was at Washington State this year, who opted in the portal? Was very non-committal on Kyle at the press conference. The floor is yours, sir.
Oh, me? All right, man. I think you got to look for some tackle help. I think, there's going to be some linebacker depth with guys.
Yeah, I think because you're losing Tommy and you're losing Steele. I think Cody might be coming back potentially for another year, which is huge because he can be the guy. And we watched him play and play very well, when Tommy and Steele needed spelled or were hurt this year.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, again, this is where I go back. They're going to look in the portal. They brought some guys in the portal that actually played significant snaps for us. And that's what you got to do, because it just brings in some more juice and energy, because they're going to compete, man. They got a chip on their shoulder. Nothing's given to them. It's like, hey, come in. We're going to give you a scholarship, compete. But we also have our guys. But guess what? When you're at Ohio State, you got to play the best, period. So when then they go and look seriously at a Cam Ward, we've already heard that there's been 10 teams that offered this guy $1 million. The thing is this too, Bob, when you go look at this portal, man, when you go look at people that necessarily want to be a Buckeye, to me, that's the thing. Do you want to be a Buckeye? Do you want to be coached and developed versus going to somewhere else? I'll tell you this, man, somebody's got to give them
say it, baby. Say it.
Somebody in Iowa, like all those big deer hunters that make all this money on all this farmland, whoever owns, I mean, honestly, they should be talking to Bill Gates, because I think he owns like 75% of the state now of farmland up there, because that's what he does. Say, hey, you need to throw some money.
China owned a lot of it.
You need to throw some of this money into our NIL deal so we can get some offensive players, because defensively we're fine. We just need to bring in some offensive players in the great state of Iowa. And also, who wants to live in really cold Ames, Iowa? I understand that, but hey, why not? Right? Like, honestly, go look at what's the best available. If you believe that you have the best, then the question would be, why are we not developing them, or why are they having the performance that they are?
One other question that I just saw pop up here too, that's kind of part and parcel with this is, should Lincoln start the Cotton Bowl? Lincoln Keenholz. And that's, I don't know. I don't want to bail on Kyle McCord. Lincoln came in late. A lot of guys come in the spring now. Yeah. He chose to finish up, play baseball his senior year. I think they won the state championship. He's great. He's a really good high school, player, multi-sport athlete, Gatorade player of the year, basketball player, baseball player, quarterback, everything. But he gives you that element of athleticism that you may not necessarily have as much with Kyle. Now he's really young, and so that can be positive. You got Aaron Nolan coming in next year. I don't know how the dynamics of all of that room work. I don't know if it would be bad to explore that. I don't know if you want to get away from Kyle, because I think he played well. Like, people act like what he did this year was bad. No, it was pretty good. He made some mistakes, but I know this, the more he plays, the better he should get. And so do you want to scrap it and start back at zero? I don't know if that's what we really want to do, but I am tempted to kind of see what Lincoln could potentially do out there, because I love his athleticism and some of the things he brings to the table.
I'm not going to knock him for this, because everybody's their own player. You watch CJ Stroud, like, try to get in a fight, somebody talking trash to him versus Denver Broncos. Like, he plays with a chip and an edge.
People said he didn't have enough emotion last year. Remember, he didn't.
No. The biggest thing was people didn't say that he wouldn't run for the first down. Right, he was pass first and always looking. And then we saw at the end of the season, like, he started running for a couple first downs just to move the change. And that's also part of to your point, it's part of growth, just being in the line of fire. You start to, like, what do I got to do to help our team win? Well, if I can go run 6 yards, get a first down, I can. Here's the deal, man. In my honest opinion, it should be wide open. Like, competition breeds excellence. If your job's online, if you fail to go compete every single day at practice, they get the guy that is hungry to compete.
Yeah.
That's it, man. Like, competition breeds excellence. That's one of the things that I want to see. Put the best out and say, you know what, unequivocally, this dude's a dog. He's the best. He makes mistakes. We're going to ride with him because he competes his ass off every single day. And in the room, he's the best in the room. Develop them all. That takes a lot of time. But
like
in a case like this, in this game, to your point of momentum, I also want to say it's like we just can't have a free-for-all where you just start throwing everybody out there, because, like, just like us in 2004, Bob, wasn't our best year. We were 8-4, but we won that last game and we beat Michigan, right? We went 3-3, and then we ran off 5-1. We beat Oklahoma State in the Alamo Bowl. You got some momentum. You got some juice.
Yeah, you come out.
And we should have beat Texas. I still remember that. And Penn State, I get it, but you had some juice going in the offseason. And that's what they need. That's what this does.
So with that, Bob Chaney throws out here, how do you get your guys engaged to play their best in the Cotton Bowl after a letdown? Because you think the goal every year, Schlegs, is the CFP, and that's obviously not going to be the case.
Yeah, how do you do it, Bob? You tell me first.
Well, I find the guys that want to be there.
Yeah,
and the guys that want to be there want to play. And some of the veteran guys, like, if you're going to move on, great. You want to be around the team. You want to practice, cool. We need a positive attitude. We need a lot of juice. And I think they have that. They have a good culture. But a lot of that starts, with the culture of this, like, hey, we didn't get it done. Don't ever let one mistake or one bad thing snowball into more. Like, this is a nationally televised football game against an SEC football team who's good, who's going to come in and try to run the football. Their running back Schaefer's a heck of a player. They're going to try to pound the rock on you. You want the same story to be had, especially on the defensive side where you couldn't get a stop in the second half. You have a chance to at least write a little different narrative. And you have to think these guys now, because you always go in the CFP. Last year you lost to Georgia, obviously. The year before that was at the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, beat Utah.
Utah in the Rose Bowl, but, like, you don't want to go out with 2 straight losses like that, right. 2 bowl games, Michigan twice. So I think that there will be some juice there, but you lean into your leaders as much as anything.
Well, here's the deal, man. Do you love freaking football? I would probably put an expletive there, but, like, I think too much. We got to get back to where, do you love football? If you play at Ohio State, wherever team that you root for, do you love freaking playing football? And if you do, this is what you do. You go out there and you knock somebody's dick off. Like, that's it. If you're an older guy, what you put on film matters. Scouts are looking at, make this your best freaking game. Prepare your body right now. Go play your best game. Then you're going to wait 3 to 4 weeks. Then you're going to play the Senior Bowl. Then you're going to wait a couple more weeks. You're going to be at a combine. That's stupid. It should be later, but we don't know about that. Then you have a pro day. But go leave your time at Ohio State on a high level because you have a high GSF for playing football. You love football. I'm tired of this NIL bullcrap and money. Go out there and knock somebody's dick off. And if you love NIL, that's what we pay you to do then. Right?
Yeah,
but go be a great teammate. Go be a great teammate. Go play hard. Now, I think this. I think the leaders that are on the team, and I think, again, we go look at the captains. X, Tommy, Cade. That's what they're about. They're going to go do that. 100%. And guess what? As you do that, bring other dudes with you. The number one thing that you can contribute on a daily basis is your freaking energy. Bring in the building, and you guys that are leaving, you can set up next year's success by making, like, honestly, like, rub it on your chest and shock them, like, take a little bit of my juice, boom, and let's go out there and let's go freaking win a football game. That's how you get them motivated, guys.
So you're saying explode your juice onto them. I like it.
Matter of fact, here's the number one thing, too. This is a great opportunity to see who has a high GSF to be a freaking Buckeye. Because if you don't want to be a freaking Buckeye, then GTFO. And this is where, and this goes back to recruiting. Are we going to recruit guys that have a low GSF for being a freaking Buckeye and are about this? Guess what? That dude that went Miami, he wanted more money. Poof, David Copperfield. We don't give a crap. Yeah. We want dudes that want to be Buckeyes. So go find those sons of bucks, because that's what we want.
All right. And that there was one more question about why I should watch this game as a fan. That right there is the reason why. This concludes the Tailgate Talk presented by All Lines Technology. All Lines Technology, your trusted IT solutions partner in Columbus, Cincinnati, Cleveland, and everywhere in between. Coming up next, we'll wrap up the show, talk a little bit of state championships right here in the great state of Ohio. So stay tuned. Final segment of the program, and it may have been a little tough to watch the Buckeyes not get selected to the CFP, but after this weekend, Schlegs, everybody knew what was going to happen. It was kind of a relief watching the show, not being on pins and needles, worrying that, hey, it could be out there, and maybe you get in, maybe you don't. You just kind of figuring out who to play. I like the Missouri matchup. I think it's going to be great. I think there's a lot of juice behind it. Cotton Bowl, pretty nice game. Down in Dallas, Texas, do a good job recruiting the Texas area, so another opportunity to get down there and get that rolling. Also, OHSA state championship results. St. Ed's in Division I over Springfield, 31-21. Springfield, I think they were a 10 seed. Their quarterback was hurt a lot of the year, comes back, made a run. Massillon over Hoban, 7-2. Real barn burner. Hoban had a chance to potentially win the game at the end. Their quarterback put one on their wideout's hands, dropped it. But Massillon winning their first championship since they've actually had the tournament era. They've had a lot of success, obviously, before, but first one in the actual tournament era. Toledo Central Catholic 27 over Watterson here in Columbus, 27-7. Glenville, home of Troy Smith, Dante Whitner, Ted Ginn of fame, 38. Archbishop Kettering Altar, 3. Perry over Liberty Center, 21-14. Kirtland over Versailles, 32-15. And Marion Local for like their 87th state championship in a row in D7, 38. Dalton, nothing. The floor is yours, Schlegs, for the final 2 minutes if you have anything else.
No, I mean, here's the deal, man. I mean, you're just talking about, like, you know, high school state championships. Let me tell you something, guys. Like, relish this. I mean, relish this. I mean, I never won a state championship in football. I won 2 as a team in wrestling. Guess what? I still got those state championship rings.
With the Scots?
With the Scots, man. Yeah, 1998, 99 and 2000. I was a state champion in 99, and then I broke somebody's face and got beat in the finals by another kid that was an all-state linebacker. It was an epic battle. People still talk about it to this day, Bob.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
But anyways, I didn't win my back-to-back. Yeah, no, they do. It was chaos. Anyways, that being said, listen, man, I got Big Ten championship rings. I got national championship rings. The memories that I had winning those state titles with the dudes that were in that room, and I went back and talked to the high school, they never leave you, man. When you win a state championship, when you win a championship of anything, it's life-changing because you remember the work that went into it. You remember, and that's why I told these kids, I was like, listen, man, if you want to be the best, like, it's about me making you better. Like, that's what being a great teammate is. It's holding each other accountable, but it's also sharpening each other, meaning, like, I'm going to go as hard as I possibly can. I was a 250-pounder. Our heavyweight that year won some big matches for us when he probably should have won because I beat the crap out of him every single day. Our 189-pounder wants a match, he shouldn't want. Why? Because I beat the crap out of him every single day. Like, that's what you do. And collectively, you come together and you win that. That's something that will never be able to be taken away from you. And congratulations to all these teams.
Hey, no one beat dudes off the mat quite like Schlegs. Dominating. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of the Bobby Carpenter Show. Stay tuned in the future because we'll have way more coming your way. Thank you.